Good morning and welcome to Live at the Legislature. For the House Majority portion of the show this week, we have Representative Ryan Yamane. He represents District 37, which covers Mililani, Waipio Gentry, and Waikele. He is also the chair of the House Health, Human Services, and Homelessness Committee. Representative, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, James.
Well, I'd like to start out with a little bit about how we're ending the session now. We just are in the final weeks and we're going to begin conference committee soon. Could you talk about some of the important health, human services, and homeless bills under consideration for passing?
Okay, well, thank you. And again, thank you to Olelo and all those helping to put this on. In the start of this session, we were facing a $1.4 to a $1.8 billion shortfall. So the Committee of Health, Human Services, and Homelessness focused on looking at what our core missions were for state government. And then we determined that the best way to serve the people was to look at some efficiency issues, consolidate, and make the services more direct for the people of the state of Hawaii. So two of the major bills currently that are in conference, one pertains to the transfer of the emergency medical services, our EMS ambulance system, to the city and county of Honolulu. We've been working directly with Mayor Vangiardi's office and EMS department of the same county of Honolulu to start this transition to the city. The other major transition is off of SB 628, which is transferring our Leahi and Maluhia Hospital, those primarily focus on long-term care, to the Department of Health to be able to do a more seamless and efficiency set of programs to address chronic homelessness and substance abuse issues.
Yeah, those are important bills, that's for sure. Another bill you introduced was, well, a resolution, HR 57, as it's an ongoing concern in Hawaii about preventing suicide. And this resolution would create Suicide Prevention Month. How is this going to help the situation?
Well, one of the things that we want people to be aware in our community is suicide and mental health issues are increasing throughout our state. So we wanted to bring light to this ongoing problem and also looking at bringing in the community on ways to addressing that. So this was a first step to acknowledging the importance, giving the whole month as awareness to help people out there in our community be aware of what mental health issues are and also the resources available to them out there. So this was a good first step to try to bring greater awareness on the issue.
And I think there's even heightened concerns with the pandemic. A lot of people can feel alone or depressed, and it's a good time to take a look at helping to prevent suicide.
Yes, and then the House is committed moving forward that looking at this into the coming year as we get additional resources from the federal government as well as over our finances, that we want to make sure that resources to everyone. That means, the programs that Department of Health offers, we want to make sure that that's available and easy use for students from, in the schools all the way to our kupuna.
Yeah, okay. Well, when we started the session, one of the major goals was to provide public health and safety for our residents during the pandemic. How is the House helping to fulfill that goal? What are we doing?
So, the Speaker put in the COVID committee, to get up-to-date information from all the various stakeholders. And as we move forward, the Speaker developed the pandemic committee to address specifically issues related to COVID. And what my role as the health chair is to actually support the ongoing services. So we've been working directly with Department of Health to making sure that vaccines are being distributed to the community. We helped put together a point of distribution in Mililani. We've also designated one and working on establishing one specifically for farmers in the community, and that will have interpreters, and the ongoing release of vaccines to health centers throughout our state that have the capability of reaching the at most risk communities.
I imagine you're keeping a close eye on all those things too, like the vaccines and the things going on in the state.
Yeah, I was actually had the privilege of volunteering, helping with as a Department of Health volunteer to help all of our first responders get their vaccine shots, and that it was very rewarding to see the amount of first responders and law enforcement and others that came out to get their shots to support the goal of getting herd immunity within our community.
Now, you didn't actually put the needle in the arms, did you?
No, I assisted with what we call flow, which is moving people forward, helping with education, and then addressing anybody's concerns. If they have anxiety or what the process was. And so yeah, we were able to service hundreds of our first responders.
Great, good work. What about bills in your district? Is anything being passed that's going to help and benefit the people in Mililani in the area?
Yeah, so actually, those bills I mentioned regarding the transfer of Leahi Malahia Hospital to the Department of Health, as well as the transferring of Honolulu EMS system from Department of Health to the city. All those are designed to help every community. And so my communities will be, part of the system. We have an ambulance site right in YPO Gentry, and they'll actually be able to now, they're city employees, but they'll be actually be part of the first responder team, just like our police and firefighters. And the goal would be for them to be on equal footing of other responders. And with the hospital systems moving to the Department of Health, we feel then that those issues like communities like Mililani and others that are facing chronic homeless, encampments growing, that we will have a system which includes the EMS and a diversion program to get them the long-term need care that they need.
I see. Well, we just have under a minute left here, but I wanted to ask you, are you optimistic now with the number of vaccines coming in that we're going to be able to soon end this pandemic, at least in Hawaii, control it and kind of get back to normal?
Well, this is a long-term battle that we will be addressing, right, in our state and in our country. But it is reassuring that more vaccines will be available. We're hoping to keep on track, as President Biden has, stated that the goal is to get everybody who wants vaccinated done by summer. As you know, next week we'll be bringing it down on Oahu to anybody 16 years and older who wants it. And the more people that we get it, and the closer we get it to that 70%, the better for all of us.
That sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us today on Live at the Legislature. And we'll see you all again next week. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, James. Thank you, everybody.
Aloha.
Hello.
So what do you see?
A community that is engaged, empowered, a place where free speech is alive and well.
Tell me more.
For 30 years, thousands of local people on TV sharing their stories, culture, and viewpoints uncensored.
Uncensored? Where can that be?
Right here, my son.
Wow!
Isn't it time to empower your voice?
Interested in speaking up about which laws make sense for Hawaii? Want to really get active at the state legislature? Make sure that you've set up an account on the legislature's website, capital.hawaii.gov. All that's required is an email address. Then you can receive email hearing notices for specific bills or for certain committees, or submit written testimony and sign up to testify remotely, or set up a measure tracking list to keep on top of bills you're interested in. Need help? Contact the Public Access Room at 808-587-0478 or par@capital.hawaii.gov.
Aloha, and welcome welcome back to the Senate segment of Live at the Legislature. My name is Jacob Aki, and this morning we're pleased to be joined by Senator Chris Lee. Senator Lee represents Senate District 25, which includes the areas of Kailua, Lanikai, Enchanted Lakes, Keolu Hills, Maunawili, Waimanalo, Hawaii Kai, and Portlock. And a fun fact, Senator Lee also represents the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, but we don't think there's much people living there. But Senator, thank you for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. Every vote counts. So for the 3 people who are out there, we got you in mind.
Thank you. Senator, this is your first year in the Senate, although you spent many years in the House. I just want to know, how are you adjusting to the Senate, and how have things been going during this first year?
You know, obviously all of this is against the backdrop of the pandemic, so nothing is normal. But it has been interesting because the Senate districts are roughly twice as large as the House districts. So there are a lot more people to represent and whose concerns you hear on a regular basis. So the issues are a little bit broader. But that said, you know, I mean, it's been great, I think, working with colleagues in the Senate. And we've worked sort of across the chamber, you know, for many years now with them. But to be able to work firsthand has been a great experience, because there's no shortage of challenges this year when it comes to the budget and to health issues, and certainly to where we're going. And I find that people have been really welcoming. I mean, there's been open doors, and where I've had questions about the way the process in the Senate works a little bit differently than the House, you know, it's been really easy, I think. And it's been great because we've been able to help other senators, and we've asked for help from other senators, and they've helped us. And I think it's been overall a really good year so far.
You know, I do want to ask, you know, this COVID-19 pandemic has definitely had a tremendous impact on many communities across our state. How has COVID impacted your district?
It's been rough. You know, we've had, going back even before I was in the Senate, you know, last year, a lot of issues with people having basic access to food. You have communities where folks have lost their jobs, where businesses have experienced shutdowns, and it's been really difficult. But I think we really were sort of boots on the ground, trying to get homeless folks connected with services, food connected with people who need it, through our schools as the hubs for that, and all kinds of other stuff that's been going on. And working together with our city counterparts, our federal partners, as well as our other legislative colleagues in the House and the Senate together, you know, it's made it a little bit more bearable, I think, for a lot of folks out there. And we certainly have a long way to go, but I feel like as a community, as a whole, we've really come together and tried to make it through this. And if you look at Hawaii compared to other states, you know, I think we should never rest on our laurels, but we're in a good spot where we've been able to mostly manage, I think, the spread of the virus and limit the kinds of impact. And thanks to a lot of the emergency actions that have been taken with budgeting, we've been able to provide resources to businesses to continue paying employees, to homeowners to pay the rent, and support all around. So we know that there's so much more that can be done, which is what we're working on this year.
You are the chair of the Senate Committee on Transportation, and you know, you do have many bills that have crossed over to the House that do look like they are heading to conference. Can you talk about some of those bills?
Sure. You know, even before COVID, there have been a lot of big issues that we've been working on at the legislature, and even for our side of the island here in Oahu. And we know that there are things, for example, traffic safety, that has been, you know, an ongoing issue where you have dozens and dozens of people killed every single year, and there's more we can do about it. So we do have some bills that try to address that rethink the way that we design our streets to make them safer, to provide sidewalks and bike lanes where appropriate, to make sure that we're separating cars from people. So that's one of the things we're focused on. We're looking at how do we rethink our airport so that in the future, if there's another pandemic, we have more flexibility in the way it's designed and built, and to sort of update it, because it is one of those facilities that, you know, has been around for a long time and definitely needs to be modernized. So we're working on that. But overall, you know, I think we're holding our breath to make sure we make it through the pandemic safely and make sure that people who need help get help. And from there, we can move forward. And that's really been the focus this year.
You know, one of the topics I do want to dive into is the issue of the return of tourism. Your district in particular experiences large traffic of tourism without having any resort, any hotel out there. Can you talk about that, and from your perspective, how things are going out there with so many tourists coming back to our state?
Yeah, I think the one of the disadvantages of having perhaps the most beautiful stretch of coastline and district in the state is a lot of people tend to focus on issues there. And one of the things we have had a challenge with in the past is, a lot of visitors coming in, especially on a really sunny holiday weekend where, everybody, all locals, of course, are also free. So we've had problems, for example, in Kailua, where you'd have traffic that backs up so long for literally hours that emergency vehicles can't get through, and it creates all kinds of health and safety problems. So we have had to try and deal with that in the past. And I think now that tourism is really picking up again, some of those issues are starting to creep back. But I think, as a community, we welcome visitors, right? We want to provide a great experience for folks, but we want to balance that against the interests of local residents and making sure that our quality of life here in Hawaii isn't affected. So we do have a couple of bills moving this year, one of which deals with tour buses, for example, that come into neighborhoods or come into places and drop folks off in dangerous spots where they're otherwise not supposed to by law. And a few of the bad apples out there have repeatedly continued to violate the law and cause problems in the community. And this is really, I think, amplifying, the frustration and angst that people feel out there and the dread that may come from a return to normal tourism. So we're trying to address that. So we're escalating penalties on those companies. We're creating meaningful deterrents to make sure that as we reopen and as we return to sort of Hawaii Economy 2.0, we do it in a way that puts the interests of local residents first, and we manage some of the issues we have appropriately so that we have a balance that provides for a better quality of life, better economy, and better end results for everybody.
We have less than 3 weeks until the end of session, which is on April 29th. And today, both the Senate and House will be on the floor debating a number of bills for third reading. What do you hope to accomplish, and what do you hope the legislature is able to accomplish in these final days?
I think the biggest thing coming out this year, right, is how can we stabilize our budget, because we've got billions of dollars short that the pandemic has taken from all of our local communities. So that's going to be the biggest thing. How do we continue providing services for folks who need help with healthcare and pandemic issues, get businesses back up and running, get people employed? And that's going to be, I think, the big focus for the legislature this year. So I'm optimistic that things are turning a corner and just look forward to helping out where I can.
Senator, thank you for joining us. And for those of you at home, stay tuned next week, Tuesday, for the Senate segment of Live at the Legislature. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
It's very important to have Melea'e here.
The experience of local artists that are going to be the future of our music here in Hawaii.
There's a huge music scene that is pretty underground.
This is a great platform to get seen. All genres that exist are out here, and there's people that love it and that are making it.
That gives us as young and even older musicians an opportunity to share our music that we never ever had before.
Your government needs you. The Hawaii State Legislature is encouraging citizens to get informed and involved. With thousands of bills introduced every year, it can be hard to keep up on the issues that matter most to you. Located on the 4th floor of the state capitol, the public access room is filled with knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you. This is your Hawaii, your state capitol. Get informed, get involved, and get the government you want.
Aloha and welcome back to the Legislative Minority segment of Live at the Legislature. I'm Kealoha Lindsay, your host, and joining us for his last episode of the season, we just found out, is Representative Gene Ward, coming to us from East Honolulu, representing House District 17, which goes from Hawaii Kai to Kalama Valley. Rep. Ward, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Kayo. I didn't realize the session has gone so fast. So this is the wrap up or last session. We don't have one afterwards, or someone else is taking it?
I think someone else might be taking it, but
Oh,
we're
okay, we got one more after this then.
yeah, one or two. So we're
Okay.
at about maybe going into the fourth quarter of session. If we were to use the sports analogy, we have the second crossover vote today. So let me just get your analysis so far of session this year, where we're at, kind of where we're going in the next 3 weeks.
When you say second crossover, that means we're less than 3 weeks out, and we're kind of in the pre-conference committee where the huddle between the House and the Senate starts. And because the legislature is still closed to the public, no one's going to know until the actual results of it come out. But what we got a couple of wins and a couple of loses, I guess you'd say. Winning, in effect, we balanced the budget, but probably because of the feds, we're not going in the hole. But as Senator Lee suggested, hey, we got to get ourselves turned around because we got a few $2 billion we're going to have to pay off in the next sessions. And not just one, but multiple if we don't get the economy going. And that's probably where the negative side is. We didn't get really, other than rhetoric, diversification of the economy. I don't know if you saw the advertiser this morning. It says, hey, we've been talking about it. We haven't really delivered anything. Senator Wakai was very critical about it. Talk about deliver stuff, particularly things like Hollywood of the Pacific, space travel. Probably the other thing that we did good was we're nearing a good percentage of vaccinations. We're still kind of low compared to other countries and even other states. We've taken a good care of the public health phenomenon. And everybody hears about herd immunity. Basically, it means once you get 70% of the people, or a majority, you've basically isolated this stupid pandemic disease called COVID-19, and you've pushed it off, as I like to say, into the ash heap of history. So that has been a very good development, but I'd like to see more outreach to getting the economy going. Even before the pandemic, we had some real difficulties with people just having enough money to make their ends meet. 58% were on the edge. And unless the economy gets bigger, we're going to be continually in trouble as the state of Hawaii. Cost of living, cost of housing, all that crazy stuff we've been talking about, we've not really done anything about. So I give the session probably a C. Some of the good things, but some of the things are in the long run. I think the summary of it is like where we are probably having is a difficult time getting out of the pandemic as we had a difficult time adjusting to getting into it. It's still very awkward. People are making decisions that go backwards, go forward, and we've done this and that. But I think it's time to open the economy. And if I can add, we should be opening the Capitol as a role model to show that, hey, we're getting close to going back to normal, and that should be the normalization of the state capitol. Right now, nobody can get in unless they got a special pass and a special permission, I guess you would call it. Anyways, that's for an openers. Kyle, you got any other questions?
Well, I'm curious because around this time last year, you and Representative McDermott were early proponents of finding a way to travel safely here in Hawaii. So just a year later, we're about 2/3 capacity as far as visitors compared to pre-pandemic levels. Are you optimistic of where we're at? How do you grade the state's performance on that, and what we look for moving forward with tourism?
Thank you for mentioning that, because over a year ago, I worked with the White House to get FDA and DOT approval for the state of Hawaii to get permission to test people before they arrive. It was very controversial, but with that permission, we kind of sat on our hands. Alaska picked it up and ran with it. Now the whole world basically is having some kind of restriction. They're talking about a passport. Hopefully we're going to call ours the safe travel vaccination card, nothing to do with the passport. But what we've done is try to balance between lives and livelihood. And that has been a test for every leader in the state of Hawaii, if not the nation, if not the world. So what McDermott and I tried to do is say, hey guys, let's get a plan. And that was introduced. We had we started out with a bang. We had this special committee on COVID. I forget what the name of it is for the House. Then we had a special one in the Senate. And now kind of we don't have any let's get the economy open committee that says let's facilitate this thing. Case in point, I went to Maui to give a speech last weekend. My office called to see what a rental would cost. You know what the cost was for the rental? $840 per day, not per week, per day. You're telling me that we're going to open our economy and we're going to charge these people $840 or $850 a day? Give me a break. It's already a difficult thing jumping through the hoops to get 72 hours ahead of time testing. So I'm hoping that we've learned enough so we can get out of this, but in a less clumsy way than we kind of got into it when we did this, that, and the other thing. And one of the disappointments in terms of the economic diversification is that we have our own oceanit Patrick Sullivan spit in a cup, 10-minute test for $20, and we could start a new pharmaceutical industry. But what have we done? Just like when I worked on the White House to get the permission to get this thing moving, we sat on our hands. We could have made it contingent upon FDA approval, and we could have had the schools tested, the teachers. Everybody is sure if you don't have the test, if you don't have the vaccine, we have the test for you. So with that is where we've missed an opportunity, which I hope people will pick up and run with the Patrick Sullivan oceanit, spit in a cup, let's test everybody so everybody feels safe. That's something we can still do, but it's a disappointment given that we've been in this pandemic for 1 year.
Transitioning to local issues, we've got about a minute left. Can you tell there was a resolution on the Kaka'ako Makai properties, and you had a lot to say about that. Can you just briefly summarize what that issue was about?
You're trying to make my blood pressure go up too early in the morning, man. Come on. That was a bait and switch. We gave the Hawaiians, in terms of the $200 million that we owed them, we gave them land instead of cash. It was what a deal. And the valuation of the $200 million was that we could allow them to build 400 feet condominiums right at Kaka'ako, where there's a beautiful view of the ocean, etc. Well, the bill that's going in fact, it's going to be on the floor today. I hope Speaker Psyche is listening, because he doesn't like me to hit that because it's his district. We are now saying, oh, we want to renegotiate that. The $200 million we're going to devalue because we're not going to allow you to build beyond that. In fact, we're going to stymie you as much as possible, which to me, the bottom line is, and I know it's time to go, it's a land grab. It's against the Hawaiian community like they've been for the last 100 years. 28,000 people on the wait list, and they're saying, well, we're going to make rental housing. Well, yep, that's good. That's a temporary fix. But in the long run, we have a moral obligation to put the Hawaiians back on the land. And this is another way to push them farther away from that goal, which we agreed to. Other than that, I have no strong feelings about the issue.
We've got about an hour until floor session starts, so hopefully your blood pressure will go down by then. Thank you for joining us this year and this season. Thanks again to the folks at Olelo, and for those who are joining us at home. We will see you next week here on Live at the Legislature. Aloha.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Olelo. Aloha.